Hello and welcome. I'm Tafarag Damum. The rainy season has just begun, and it's about time that we explore the state of our forests. My guest today, Dr. Adefris Worku, trained in tropical forestry and currently serves as the chairman of the technical committee of the Green Legacy Initiative. Everyone, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
What is the forest coverage like? Do you like that question? I mean, it used to be 4%.
Actually, if you go a little bit far, up to 100 years, the document we have by professionals from Addis Ababa University said that Ethiopia used to have more than 40 or close to 40% forest cover. But because of the very extensive deforestation and the forest degradation in this country, which have been carried out for many decades in the past, because of negligence and unwise management of our natural resource, our forest resource or the cover of forest has been become very small one.
But it wasn't a sharp decline. Yeah. It was a gradual one.
Yeah. Actually, that was a gradual one. It used to be like 20%, then 7%, 10%. It became you cannot destroy your forest overnight. Deforestation and forest degradation is a gradual process. Then it became to close to 3 and then 4%, but around 2030, Ethiopia has changed its definition for forests. And then by that change...
That was in 2013.
In 2013, and that is not only Ethiopia did that, actually. This is also a global process which, triggered or motivated countries to reconsider the definition of the forests so that much of the vegetation will be considered as a forest, to be part of the climate change mitigation process.
So as part of that definition, the figure
has become, 50% forest cover around that time, but also not only because of the change of the definition. Actually, we didn't change much. According to FAO, there are many criteria, to define forest, one of which is height, actually. So height used to be 5 meters, and Ethiopia started to use 2 meters. And it is because of that, the so-called woodland or dry forest, previously not considered as a forest, was considered now as a forest, and it has contributed a lot. But also because of plantation, which have been carried out during the last 2 decades, that also contributed significantly to the increment of the forest cover of the country. And now our forest cover is 17.2% and more than 90 million hectares actually.
So you have a degree of concentration in some parts of the country and less so in other in the other parts of the country.
That is true. Actually, we have different forest or different vegetation types or forest types. Like, if you come to highlands, then this is the less or the sparsely forested area because of the resettlement and the agriculture. Actually, the highland part of the country don't have much forests except this remnant forest that you see as Managasha or Bale forest or as Chilimo forest.
These are isolated ones.
Yeah,
that have been there for some time.
That they used to be, according to the teaching in the forestry or in forest ecology. This used to be chains, they are used to be connected forests, but because of, the continued deforestation over several decades and a century, now they became a patch, and now the plan is, to reconnect, the patch forest so that we will have more forests in the highland. But as you go to the lowland part of the country, then you see more extensive dry forests actually, which we consider them as a forest now.
And then we started to be exposed to or become vulnerable to climate change.
Ethiopia has become more vulnerable to climate change, which is also associated to unwise management of our natural resource or landscape or natural resource degradation, because the two reinforce each other. Degradation and the climate change, they reinforce each other, and one caught the other, and one also support the appearance of the other. And because of mismanagement of our natural resources, particularly forests, we became vulnerable to climate change in the form of drought and also flood. And yes, it is very important, to bring back those lost forests so that our social ecological resilience will will increase.
It also boils down to livelihoods, right? I mean,
Yeah, basically, forest is a renewable resource. Forests can be cut, trees can be cut, and the trees are there for us. But the question is, how much can we take out from a particular place? How much trees or how much forest can we cut? And in this country, the very problem is not allowing the people to cut a tree and to use a tree. But the question is that, do we only cut existing natural forests or try to replace? The other countries in the world, they use their forests, but also they replace. What was lacking until recently in Ethiopia was replacing what we have cut. And also, lack of land use policy, which triggered, deforestation, a continuous land use change, and we are unable to maintain some of the areas that used to be, under forest cover. And sometimes, people may cut tree today, but, they will become more fragile tomorrow. And for today, they might, get some income, but that income is not going to be sustainable. But we, as a forester, have been saying that, yes, it is possible to cut a tree. Tree can be support livelihood and the economy of the local community and also the nation, but that needs to be done sustainably. For what we cut, we need to also replace. And also there should be some places which we shouldn't cut. There need to be some areas to be conserved for generation.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I mentioned that is because years ago I visited that forest enclave in Belet Agera down south of Jimma. It's quite an impressive area. But then there was that disconnect between the people living there and the intervention to conserve that large swath of land. As a result, you continuously see people cutting down trees. And Jimma is pretty much known for that.
Yeah, that is a problem. For many years, there was a very strong disconnect between the forest and the community. And that is, not... It happened because of lack of a strong institution, and also the know-how of sustainable forest management in our country. Now what we have been doing is that people need to benefit from the natural resource existing around them, and it is when you allow them to use and when they benefit from that natural resource or natural capital that they will feel ownership, so that they will develop a sympathy and conserve that forests. And that is why now the government is going very massively to implement this participatory forest management, which give the forests to the local communities, so that the local communities together with the government own that forest and use somehow through sustainable management way. And also
but there were also similar efforts in the past, right? I mean, to kind of bring the communities aboard in terms of conserving their natural heritage,
yes,
including forests, correct?
Yes, that actually is not a new approach, but it wasn't extensive. It didn't cover much part of the area. For instance, participatory forest management in Ethiopia used to be implemented on project base, where there are NGOs, they do it, but not much, by the government. But now, this has become one of the means to sustainably manage the existing forests, particularly those carbon and biodiversity-rich forests, and the communities will own those forests. They use some of the products without harming the sustainable existence of the natural forests. But also what we have been doing now is, by increasing the forest cover, by creating new forests around the communities.
Are you talking about the Green Legacy Initiative?
Yes, that is.
So, of which you are a technical committee chair, right?
Yes.
So the initiative was launched, 3 years ago?
Yes.
Now we are into the fourth year.
Fourth year, yeah.
So this will be the final one. This is a 4-year project, right?
Yes, it was the first phase is the 4-year project, and if you heard the Prime Minister during the launching of this year plantation program, His Excellency promised that a new one or phase 2 Green Legacy initiative will be announced soon, and we have been, as a technical committee also, we have been developing a proposal for the next.
For the next one, which will begin, the next phase will begin next year, basically in 23.
Yeah, we are hoping that is also going to be a 4 years program. Yeah.
So this one, when it was launched, you have this ambitious and bold initiative, which was committed to plant 20 billion seedlings.
Yes.
Very ambitious.
Yeah,
it strikes me as something that cannot be achieved.
Yeah, that can be achievable. The question is that the level of degradation, natural resource degradation or landscape degradation in Ethiopia, the amount of land that we already, cannot produce much is very huge. A recent study by a research institution called WRI, World Resource Institute, says that about 54 million hectares of land, this is almost half of the country, has been, showing different level of degradation. And taking into account, the increment of the population, the very rapid growth of population in our country, unless and otherwise we plan such an ambitious plan of planting trees to restore the degraded landscape and also supply wood for this very, aggressively growing population, Ethiopia would be in problem tomorrow rather than, even compared to today. So the ambition to respond to the very aggressive problem we are in, the climate change impact we have been facing, the desertification problem we have been facing, unless and otherwise we introduce such an ambitious plan, then we are really not going to survive. And that is why we have been, as a country, engaging into that very tough and ambitious plan. But lessons show that this is also very much achievable.
Have we met the target?
Yes.
For example, the first one, 2019, was 4 billion seedlings, right?
Yep.
And the year later, that is 2020, it was 5 billion. Yeah. And 21, 6 plus 1 billion.
Yeah.
And now, which just started, about 6 billion.
Yes. And according to the report that this national technical committee have from all the regions, sometimes also we send our own experts to supervise, how much seedlings have been produced in nursery, how much nursery we have. You see that, that the target has been achieved according to this report that we have been getting from all the regions. And
so all the nurseries were able to avail those seedlings, yes, or they were running short of that?
4 years ago, when this Green Legacy initiative was launched, and we have less than 40,000 nurseries in this country. And amazingly now we have more than 120,000 nurseries because, that call to regreen Ethiopia has triggered the farmers, the private sectors, and also the project leaders and the donors to invest a lot, to raise quality seedlings. And that has been really, particularly if you look at, the number of nurseries which have been established in this country during the last 3-4 years is very much amazing.
So who owns these nurseries?
There are about 4 identified owners, and one of actually many of the the nurseries are owned by the government. Again, the projects,
but others, of course, other than the government.
Yes, but there are projects, supported by donors and also in collaboration with the governments. There are community nurseries. There are also private or individual nurseries. You see, users, come together, form a cooperative, and started to produce seedlings. So that has become, one of the node in the forestry sector where we have seen that a very growing job has been created.
So all the regions are covered as far as nurseries are concerned, correct?
Yes.
So they have their own nurseries?
Their own nurseries, despite, the difference in the numbers, actually.
They're doing quite an interesting work out there. Be able to make ready all these billions of seedlings.
Yes.
Yeah. Have they succeeded, do you think, or there are some challenges?
Yeah, there are a number of challenges, actually.
What are those challenges?
One of the challenges, because of the scarcity of finance, for instance, because, managing 121 1,000 seedlings, nurseries is not a small one. This needs a lot of money, actually. So, much of the intervention is done by the local communities and by the owners, by mobilization of free labor, actually. So one of the challenges that we have been seeing in nursery is that late start of nursery schedules, for instance. And that will, if you start early, that means that you need to invest a lot. So if you have, a scarcity of finance, what you do is you begin your nursery activities a little bit late, and that will kick out, the indigenous species, which need a little bit more months to stay in the nurseries. That has been, improving from 2011 or 2019, where we began this initiative. But still, that challenge we have been seeing. That is why we call, also the global community to support Ethiopia, because this Green Legacy initiative is not only for Ethiopia. That is going to contribute a lot for the global community, because particularly in terms of, fight against climate change, desertification, and so on.
Absolutely. I was about to raise a question of indigenous species in this country. We have plenty of them here, right?
Yes.
You're not saying that they are all kicked out because of this cost issue.
Yes, Ethiopia, in terms of its, biodiversity, it ranks 5th in Africa and also 25th in the world. That means Ethiopia is a hotspot, a biodiversity hotspot, and our species, count close to 7,000. And this country is known for having, many indigenous species. Many of them, again, are economically very important if you consider those, timber species, medicinal species, fodder species, so on and so forth. Indeed, when you go to the farmers, they want, fast-growing species, because, as you said, they wanted to really also address their socio-economic problems. And relatively, the indigenous species, they grow slowly. But what we have been doing during the last 2-3 years is that we have been encouraging nursery managers in the regions, and also particularly the project managers, to focus more on indigenous species. And we have been introducing this kind of scale, 30%, for instance, to plant 30% indigenous species, 30% fast-growing species to respond to the economy of the local communities, and 30% different, like ornamental, fruit trees, so on and so forth.
So are they heeding your advice?
Yes. Indigenous species have been, increasing their presence, both in terms of species and also in terms of coverage of seedling, have been increasing during the last three years.
So you're saying that they are availing the seedlings in required variety as well as in quantity, correct?
Yes.
So you're happy with that?
Yeah, we have been happy with that, and we wanted to really improve this more. For instance, in terms of increasing the proportion of indigenous species in the coming years, in terms of, focusing on more affected or more endangered species, to bring back them to nurseries and to increase their presence in the landscape. We wanted to focus also on economic species by establishing commercial forests. Ethiopia didn't have much hectare of commercial forests, well-managed commercial forests. We have been done that, since a long time ago, but we wanted to also focus on that in the coming years.
Interesting. So how do you identify sites for planting?
Yes, that is also a very important question. Actually, as I said, this WRI study, which have been done in collaboration with my then ministry, Environment and Forest and Climate Change Ministry, identified in each kabale, that went up to watershed and identified sites suitable for restoration, based on, tree-based landscape restoration. So what we do is that, all that plan, actually the plan for Green Legacy come from region. For instance, Oromia say, I will plant or prepare this amount of seedlings to restore this hectare of land. At a national level, we put that number together and we started to negotiate again with regions. And it is the region that through, its chain of administration, go to the kabale level and discuss with the communities to come up with identified site for plantation. It is based on that we identify a plantation site for tree planting.
What is your follow-up like, i.e., the most important phase in this initiative, I guess, is the post-planting period, right?
Yes.
You just don't plant and go. You need to. Are you making any meaningful progress along that line?
Yeah, this is still a challenge. Actually, in many countries, post-planting management is a very standing challenge, particularly when you do landscape restoration, using, by planting millions of hectares of land and by mobilizing millions of communities. Then everybody, the lessons that we got, people are more interested, institutions are more interested in planting the seedlings compared to the management intervention in the later phase. We know that problem, and that was a standing problem since a long time. Even
that's a problem with campaigns.
Yes.
So do you feel that is happening now?
Yes, there are a lot of improvements actually. Some of the institutions, for instance, if you take some federal institution, what they do is that they go for planting to encourage the local communities, to restore a degraded landscape. But again, they motivate the local communities to own that plantation site. And that is how we have been, improving the planting management by creating an owner for the planted areas. Previously we used to go, we ask a kabale, they will give us, a site, and then people go and plant there. But now the very transformative improvement we have done is that we have been asking regions to give or to prepare map for the plantation site and to assign owner for that plantation site even before it is planted. Then, now many of the plantation sites in the country do have an owner, either an individual owner or a group of youth or a group of farmers, if it is a community land, so that, post-plant management has been improving from compared to the previous years. And also, one of the things that has been, improving or enhancing post-planting management is that forest product has started to get a lot of market in the country. Now the farmers started to test how trees are important to transform.
You mean in the last 4 years, or?
Actually, this has begun a little bit earlier, where forest product has started to get market in the country, particularly associated with this booming construction in urban areas, where much of the construction product are forest products. But again, during the last 4 years, because of the Green Legacy initiative, and because tree planting has got a high attention by the leaders of the country and the regional administration, awareness has significantly increased. And because of this increased awareness for sustainable forest management, then people started to value a tree, a seedlings.
Really?
And yes,
wow.
This have been, very much appreciated and encouraging lessons that we have learned during the last 4 years. Now even farmers started to ask, would you bring us, more fruit trees, more commercial or timber trees, more fodder trees? They started to even, prefer the type of species they wanted to plant. And
They've started becoming so specific in their demands.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is really very much important. This will increase, if, the supply or the activities are based on the local interest, that means that you are also increasing the demand for the interest for post-planting management. And that is why, survival has been increasing in this country. The report we have, and also we did small studies across the main tree growing regions, and the amount of survival rate we got, we never heard. In my education, I worked for about 20 years in forestry sector, and I didn't get that type of survival before. And now survival has been increasing. And this came with increasing ownership and also awareness on the importance of forests.
How many colleges in this country are providing training in forestry?
I don't know.
Do you have any idea?
I mean, previously it is Alumni University and Wondoganat, of course, there are also, I mean, these are the pioneers actually. And I studied in Alumni University and I was the last graduate. It's very much unfortunate. I still feel it. And I was the last graduate in forestry in Alumni University, then Wondoganat, the oldest one. But during the last 10, 15 years, I may say that, I mean, all universities, it might not be, a kind of proper forestry as such, but they give natural resource, trainings, or maybe where, student will also take forestry education. I know, for instance, Gondar University has a PhD program on forestry, and Wallo University, and also other universities actually. But for me, this one is really a little bit mixed one, and I still expect, because Ethiopia needs really to work hard on forests in the future, because forest is the future of this country, because we are very much mountainous country, and the impact of climate change, landscape degradation is very huge, and also the demand for forest product is increasing globally and nationally, and hence we have a lot of opportunities to make forestry a sectoral economy to support the economy of the country. Then,
So what you're saying is that there is no single higher institution of learning specializing in forestry as it used to be quite many years ago.
Yes. I strongly suggest that, few universities need to strongly focus on proper forestry education so that we'll have these proper foresters who understand, the silviculture, the ecology of forestry. That would be very important, if we want to engage in sustainable forest management in this country.
Thank you very much for joining me to talk about this important topic. It was really a pleasure having you on my show.
Thank you very much for having me.